Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Deltarune video. Today, because I didn't stream it or anything, I want to talk about the Undertale 10th anniversary streams, and just maybe how they could relate to certain things in Deltarune. Now, already, I can foresee a genre of comment that could end up on this video, right? It's the Undertale 10th anniversary. Why are you trying to make everything about Deltarune? And actually, I kind of felt the same way. All right, I've gone on record about this before. When Skies Forever Blue came out and everybody was trying to, speculate on how that could be about Deltarune. I was like, I don't know, man. Maybe Toby just likes doing other things. The issue with that for this, and that's also why I didn't stream the event, because I was just going to enjoy it in my own time, which I did. Because it wasn't probably going to be related to Deltarune, so it'd be fine. However, so much of this seems specifically to relate to Deltarune, so I have to discuss it in that context. I mean, not only do some Deltarune characters show up in this anniversary stream, but a lot of motifs from Deltarune show up in terms of music and also in terms of writing. So let us begin. I'm also going to assume you've watched at least all the new stuff before starting this, because I really can't explain everything to you. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of people either react to it or talk about it already. So let's start off with the most low stakes sort of thing that I noticed during this presentation. And that was that the balloon that we got in the newsletters a while ago, which is one of our few images to suggest what might be happening in Chapter 5 so far, was used during this presentation in the new home section with the nose nuzzling contest. I don't know if that actually means anything. Probably not. It's probably just, oh, we have a balloon sprite from Deltarune. We can use that here where we need some balloons. But, it is interesting that this is the first place we've seen it. Not even in Deltarune itself. Or in the context of any scene in Deltarune even. It was just kind of on its own in the newsletter page, so. So, let's talk about the Deltarune characters that made an appearance here. So, one of these is much stronger than the other two. You can probably tell which one's the strongest. But I do want to talk about all three anyway. So, yes, hidden behind the tree in Snowdin, you can see Noelle. Toby specifically was trying to, tease us about not going to talk to her or whatever. She probably didn't even have any dialogue because, it was all for show. But yeah, she's in Undertale. We already knew that she existed in the Undertale universe, or at least we assumed. We knew Rudy existed and had kids in this universe. So we assumed those kids would be the same as the ones in Deltarune. And yeah, it seems to be the case, and Noelle is here, and it's nice to see her. We do get, probably the most important thing about this is we get the back sprite of her little baby child sprite. That we've only seen in silhouette in Deltarune, so, that's nice for sprite artists to recreate. Number 2, and this one's much stronger than the third one, but still a little bit weird, is this Bluebird, who is the teacher in the Hotland School section. And of course, everybody's first immediate reaction, because why wouldn't it be? I mean, look at her. That must be Birdley's mom! And yeah, I agree. Her being a teacher in Deltarune does make some sense, or in Undertale makes some sense, because Birdley is very studious, or at least that is the way he is choosing to try to impress people in Deltarune. So him getting that from, trying to impress his mom by being smart, that would make sense. And yeah, she just looks exactly like him, but, slightly different. So that's pretty cool. I don't know if it necessarily deconfirms that the bird in the saloon, which I talked about in an earlier video before Chapter 3 and 4 came out, is related to Birdley in some way, because, all the goat monsters are related and all the ghosts are related. So it's possible that all the birds are also related in some way. but probably not like direct parentage in that case. Maybe the bird in the saloon is like an aunt or a cousin or something. And third, this Susie kind of at the school. So in the front row, looking away from us at all times so we cannot see their face, is this student. And now the most glaring contradiction with the idea this would be Susie is the hand is green. I mean, you could see that the hand is green. And I do have some potential conspiracy theories to get around that. But the reason why I think this should probably be, at least plausibly, considered to be Susie's version in Undertale is because, one, we saw Noelle. So we saw Noelle, we saw Birdley's mom. It would make sense if we also saw Susie, right? Or somebody related to Susie. And two, just like Noelle, this character is looking away so we cannot see their face, which does feel somewhat like a pattern. So why is she green? Why are you green? I have a conspiracy, okay? And it could just be that this is Susie's sister, which she does mention a sister in Dragon Blazers 2. Although, remember, Dragon Blazers is based on the prophecy in Deltarune, so it's not necessarily that it's Susie's sister. It could be somebody else's sister, but you know. I do have a theory. And the theory is essentially, Toby had this button during the stream that he could press to poison himself, where he'd turn green. And this is explained in this post that, you know, Toby implemented it in case he ever felt, you know, he recently had COVID, so he was worried he might have some brain fog, and he has the button to set up if he's feeling bad to be poisoned, right? It is interesting, though, that the poison specifically turns him green, and he also did not use it during the stream for that purpose. He used it almost completely for comedic timing. So maybe it was actually a hint about something else. And I brought it up like as soon as I started out this slide, but Susie does mention it's like when your sister gets cursed in Dragon Blazers 2. So maybe this little Susie is quote unquote cursed in some way. How that might manifest in the real world is like, you know, some sort of illness or some sort of environmental condition that's caused her skin color to change to green. Like Toby's poison changed his color to turn to green. And this isn't actually that outrageous because lizards, which Susie is some kind of lizard, fantasy or otherwise, they do change color in response to their environment. You can see I've got a picture here. This darker lizard versus the lighter lizard, its scales and skin will turn darker if it's in a colder environment because then it can absorb more heat. And of course, lizards are cold-blooded, so they need external heat in order to keep them moving, right? And then they turn a lighter color when exposed to heat. So perhaps because this Susie lives in Hotland, her skin is a lighter color than in hometown where the climate is much more temperate and not literally a volcanic crater or whatever Hotland is. It's probably not that deep. This character's probably just not Susie, or it's somebody related to Susie that we'll find out later in Deltarune, but I thought I'd bring up my insane conspiracies for fun. All right, Sans from Deltarune hints. There was a lot of skeleton lore in this presentation, and one of those things is the idea that Sans originally came from Deltarune and went to the Undertale universe, or vice versa, but it really more makes sense that Deltarune Sans would go to Undertale, considering the machine in his back room that says, you know, its handwriting is illegible and can't go back and all of this stuff. In the versus Sans attack battle, the new Sans pacifist fight, essentially, that we got as a result of this stream and charity incentives, Sans does the jitterbug, which of course is the dance he does with Toriel at the end of Chapter 4. And now that's not real hard evidence, because obviously the dance could exist in both worlds. But interestingly, something else that exists in both worlds, supposedly, was Icy. And Icy only shows up in Undertale, unless I am wrong on this, but as far as I could like look up, and my memory tells me the same thing, he only exists on something that Sans gives the player, which is the Junior Jumble, right? And that Junior Jumble is also where Nightmare exists, which is like the fun event version of Icy, where it's a snowman. In the Hotland school section, we learn that their mascot is Fire E, and they don't know where it came from, and nobody likes it, or nobody knows why he's sweating, which does imply, if he's sweating and he's fire, that the original is Icy, and then Fire E was adopted afterwards, right? Like, it implies that the Undertale version of Icy is this Fire E character, and it's based on Icy, which came from with Sans, so could have come from Deltarune's world. That's a little bit more convincing to me. Maybe not to you, but just the idea that Undertale has its own version of Icy that is separate from the version that Sans knows is a pretty big hint, I would say. Speaking of big hints, it happened. The thing we were all kind of joking about before the stream began, the idea that Gaster's door would show up in Waterfall and Toby would have to address it. Well, the door did show up, kind of, and Toby didn't address it. Address me. But it showed up in a different form than we've ever seen before, which this door we've always known that is the same door as in Sans and Papyrus's house, just grayscale. It wasn't grayscale this time, which really, really implies that this is a door from Sans and Papyrus's house. The room between, you might say. And this just adds so much that we can talk about in terms of Gaster, and even in Deltarune. For one, it was long speculated, like it was a big fan theory, that Gaster was a skeleton, related to Sans and Papyrus in some way. And really, there was no solid evidence other than slight visual resemblance and the fact that, you know, Sans has the Gaster blasters as an attack, and Wingdings is a font, just like Papyrus and Sans, Comic Sans. But now, I mean, this is pretty much irrefutable, right? Like, yeah, Gaster is a skeleton of some kind, or at least he is related to Sans and Papyrus in some way. And, you know, that's not too crazy, but it does actually add some stuff we can think about in terms of Deltarune. Like, for example, there was kind of a joke theory for a while that Sans's brother, who we're going to meet in Deltarune, is actually not Papyrus, and it is Gaster, because the three are brothers, but Papyrus doesn't exist in this world or something. Which, you know, that doesn't necessarily track anymore, because we've got the lines of dialogue about a distant trousling of bones, and Papyrus is one of the names in the Garnermaker sequence that elicits a response from Gaster. So maybe not, but, you know, it could be. That would definitely be a twist. And there's so much more. Okay, one, the Gaster door in Undertale is in Waterfall. This is something I never really thought about before, but the Gaster and water sort of connection, or the Deltarune and water connection, is that why his door exists in Waterfall and not the actual house? You know? Like, is that possibly why Gaster is secluded in this place? There's also some stuff in this stream that implies that Sans and Alphys are actually well acquainted, which was another fan theory based on the fact that Sans has all those, like, astrophysics, metaphysics textbooks, quantum physics textbooks is what I was trying to say. And, you know, the two of them both being scientists could mean that they knew each other and worked under Gaster, right? That was the idea. Seems like there's some hinting towards that as well in this stream. There's just a lot to talk about in terms of Gaster. And guess what? I'm not even done yet. Copies are monochrome. This line will haunt me until we get some sort of resolution on it in Deltarune. If you don't remember where this comes from, it comes from the Seven Flying Aces, one of those Rudens that exists in the Chapter 3 Egg Room in Deltarune. And this ace is essentially like, you know, you wanted to cheat at cards, so you photocopied a bunch of aces, but they were in black and white. And you colored each of us in with care. Sort of an implication that, like, you know, you can become your own being even if you're a copy of somebody else, which there is so much, like, theming around that in Deltarune. Chris is basically, like, seen as a copy of Azrael but wants to be their own person, or, like, treated that way by Toriel and Asgore, and the town at large for the most part. Ralsei, of course, seems like a copy of Azrael as well, and is trying to find his own identity in the current, you know, story of Deltarune. There's a lot of hinting towards this idea of coloring it in with care, making your own identity from being just a copy of something else. And, you know, Gaster's door used to be monochrome, and now it's colored in. So what does that mean? I actually have a thought, but it's going to take me a long time to get the video out where that thought is actually going to make any sense. So I'll just leave you with a thought for now. You can try to guess what the video is about. But I think it might be our searching and our fervent adoration, let's say, for Gaster that has caused this door to become colored in again. Like, we have filled in the gaps that were left behind by him being shattered in time and space. Yeah. So, get hyped for that video that's going to come out in like 3 months. Anyway, yeah, New Home, somebody's painting their house orange. New Home was always grayscale, whereas the ruins were purple. Still a thing. And of course, copies being monochrome, New Home is a copy of Old Home or the ruins. It's just further layering on this, or I guess not even layering, nailing it in to say, like, pay attention to this. You know what I mean? So yeah. An underwater adventure. Wait, I can do the impression. Hold on. An underwater adventure. Wow. If you don't know where that's from, I will play a clip of it for you right now because I think it's funny.
Hey, guess what? I know an underwater film.
An underwater adventure? Wow!
All right, back to the theory. This is the last slide, by the way. Remember Onion-san? Well, now you do. Onion-san was actually giving us some weird, foreboding hints about the song from the sea in Deltarune, and then just disappeared. Just wasn't in Chapter 4. Because it was raining, maybe? I mean, the last thing Onion-san told us was that they were going to go check out the music they were hearing under the water, and now they're gone. So that's probably fine, right? I'm sure Onion-san is all right. Oh, boy. This whole underwater area is interesting, because every other new area we've been introduced to seems to tie into something with Deltarune, right? It seems to sort of hint at something that's coming while also giving us an increased view of the scope of Deltarune, or like Undertale's world. Maybe the only other example of this not happening is the Snowden tree area, where we find the Christmas tree man who is chopping down trees. But even that, like, for a long time, we speculated, since Deltarune came out, that the house down there that this lumberjack apparently lives at was actually the Holiday family's house. And now we're told that, like, we're shown that isn't the case. Even something like the new Azrael dialogue, which seems to imply some things about Kara, which we didn't know before, could come into play in Deltarune when it comes to, you know, Chris. However, this underwater section is weird, because nothing explicitly seems to hint at anything in Deltarune. And it is cool to see where all the, you know, undersea creatures actually live in Undertale. But there has been all this water theming, I was talking about it earlier in this video even, in Deltarune, in terms of, like, the background in the Garnermaker sequence being called the Depths and being like an inverted water picture that's like folded in on itself. And like the book you can find in chapter 4 that talks about the shadow crystals, essentially, probably. I mean, we don't know, but we're pretty sure. Being tears from the fallen star, which is probably the night. There's so much like water symbolism. And then, of course, the song from the sea. I don't know what it means, though. Also, the song in this section only references one motif, as far as I know, and it's the holy. I just don't know how this all ties together necessarily. Like, I can see the line. It's like very blurry. I can see the tenuous connection between waterfall, underwater, depths, reversed image, and Gaster, right? Like, okay, Gaster and water shake hands. But I don't know for what purpose. I can't figure out the thematic reason for it. So I guess I'll leave that up to you. Let me know in the comments what you think. And thanks for watching this video. It's a short little one, but, you know, I had to talk about it. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.